Welcome everyone, thank you so much for coming to our first ever Pacifica Senior Project Fair. It's been amazing so far. I was really inspired by the tabletop presentations that we had over here and our breakout sessions and the portraits. Is Izzy here? That was amazing. What a special gift. I was telling her earlier, those just really feel right for this moment. Our first ever graduating senior class, and to have them memorialized like that is truly incredible. So, in this part of our senior project fair, I have the distinct privilege of inviting our very first Pacifica STEAM scholar. Her in a bit. And then for our second presentation, we have Olivia Garcia, who recorded her very own EP and is going to be sharing some of that with us tonight and is going to do a live demo as well. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. O'Neill.
Good afternoon. I have the very distinct pleasure of introducing to you our first ever TGC Scholar. To have the distinction of TGC Honors means the completion of one of 3 unique pathways of enhanced learning. The liberal arts emphasis encourages students toward a solid general education with periodic deep dives into the individual subjects. The STEAM emphasis offers specialization in science and math, balanced by languages and the arts, which also support the humanities emphasis and its captivating study of English and history. But beyond this rigorous study, each of these emphases offers a special senior study course called TGC Scholars, a guided research project with a faculty advisor. This project is intended to reflect each student's personal academic journey and interests and acts as a capstone presentation for their time at Pacifica. As our first ever TGC Scholar, Amanda Moe has not only fulfilled the honors coursework, but she has also completed a scholar project in the STEAM emphasis. Amanda spent the last year conducting academic research and participating in an immersive internship as she studied the present state of 3D bioprinting technology, specifically its application to the bioprinting of human hearts. She has explored the possibilities of this emerging technology as well as its potential ethical ramifications. In the fall, Amanda will head out to pursue her goal of practicing medicine. If her research paper is any indication of her future pursuits, I have no doubt that she will find great success in whatever field she may end up. Join me in welcoming Amanda Moe.
Thank you so much, Mrs. O'Neill. I'm just really excited to share my project with you today. I've done a lot of research and I'm really excited and passionate about it, and I'm really excited to share a little bit about what I found with all of you today. So thank you for being here. The goal of this study was really to distinguish the limitations currently restricting the construction of a transplantable bioprinted human heart, whether or not it's a realistic endeavor, and what would be positive outcomes and ethical risks that are involved in this. Personally, my goals were just really to improve my research skills. I hadn't really had a good opportunity to hone skills of doing in-depth research before, and it was a great learning experience for me. Additionally, I just really wanted to further develop areas of interest and just areas that I'm really passionate about. So as for the research that I did, all of my research was obtained from studies and articles published by researchers at the very tops of their field who were actively doing research in labs and actually printing part material. So you may be asking, what is 3D bioprinting? 3D bioprinting is a 3D printing And 3D printing is a process of using models designed on a computer to print a 3D object. I have a little model here that we printed for you. As you can see, it's a hard object, and there's a lot of intricacies that you can do specifically that are printed through a computer model. 3D bioprinting is where the ink is actually made out of living cells. Traditionally, with just regular 3D printing, the ink is plastic, as you see with this one right here. But with bioprinting, it's actually made with living cells, which is really cool. The 3 main components of this bioprinting that I researched was the materials, just what is in this ink that they are using, the technology, the printers, and the design software that is used to print these materials, as well as the vascularization within the tissues that are printed, which is an extremely essential and crucial part. The correct composition of bioink is absolutely critical for construction of a viable tissue. The human heart is extremely complex, and it is not made with just one single type of cell. It has to have a lot of different properties, including it has to be able to beat, it has to generate connective tissue, and it has to promote vascularization. More on that later. Here we have a really cool little video for you. This was created in a study that aimed to research what is in that bioprinted material and what cell types make up the best cardiac patch. So what you see here is a cardiac patch, which is actually capable of being grafted into a damaged heart, which is cool because it could potentially be used to just reverse the symptoms of a heart attack or heart failure, which is really cool. So I'll play it for you. No? Sorry. Oh, here we go. Sorry, technical difficulties. What you can actually see though is in the video, the heart actually expands and contracts, and you can see the wavelength coming out as a regular, even beat, which is really quite amazing. For vascularization, vascularization is the blood flow and the connective arteries and capillaries and all the blood vessels that go through a tissue. And without this, cells will die very quickly. And this is because they deliver oxygen to the tissues, which is absolutely essential. They also receive nutrients and hormones and immune responses, and they get rid of waste. The complexity of these blood vessels makes printing really difficult because you can't print them within a tissue really easily. So a way to combat that issue is by printing them outside and then inserting them into a printed tissue. But the problem is, how do we get tissues to be alive while they are still being printed and those blood vessels have not been inserted into them yet? So that's one of the difficulties that they're really running into. As for the technology that is used to print these, the printers that can produce soft living tissues is really something that's a big goal right now. A printer needs to be able to maintain the cell's life while this tissue is being printed. A lot of printers are very harsh in how they print their products, and because it's a living tissue, it needs to be able to be both very delicate but also create an accurate product. It's the same with design software. It needs a system that not only can accurately represent the structure and properties of this model that you are printing, but it needs to be able to replicate the stress and the tension that it will undergo while it's inside of the body. Because that's, if somebody is going to create a valve or an organ, they need to be able to understand how it will respond once it's actually in the body. Here we have cool little technology. It's called Fresh. It's one of the top ones at its field right now. Its goal is to print soft materials and tissues, and it does this by actually printing into a gel bath that it's solid enough to support the tissue that is being printed, but it's loose enough that the printer can move through easily, and when it's finished, the gel bath is actually melted away. So you just are left with the finished tissue. So you may be asking, ethical ramifications, where does this all apply? Well, for one, doctors really have an ethical responsibility to save people's lives if they are able to. And how beneficial would these organs actually be for someone? Well, 20 people die each day waiting for a organ transplant. So if there was not if there was not such a demand for organs, so many more people would be able to live if they were just able to be printed. Additionally, think of an infant or a child. Most hearts that are available for transplant are full-grown adult hearts, and they simply do not fit into the body cavity of an infant or a child. So a lot of times, if one of these very small people needs a heart transplant, they will not be able to get it and they will die, which could be solved with bioprinting that can make the hearts especially formatted for a person's own body. Additionally, rejection and the use of anti-rejection medicines could be completely unneeded with the use of bioprinted hearts. What actually happens with transplanted hearts is that the body recognizes the transplanted heart as an invader, and it actually triggers the immune system to fight against it. However, this is not good, correct? Because the heart will die. So a person needs to live on anti-rejection medicine, which causes the immune system to not fight against invaders, which makes a person much more likely to, and much more at risk for cancer and a serious infection. So if a heart could potentially be made out of a person's own cells, the immune response would not need to fight against it at all, and it would be much more healthy for a person to live once they have received a heart. Additionally, the benefits of these bioprinted hearts would be there would be a better way to test new treatments and medications, and it could potentially end the trade of organ trafficking. However, there are the positives and there are also negatives. One very important aspect of this is there really is no good cell type to use as ink, in the sense that embryonic stem cells are by far the most effective and they work very well, but they are unethical to procure, while the adult stem cells that are debatably much more ethical to procure are not effective enough to be really useful. Additionally, on a more philosophical level, this kind of bioprinting our own hearts kind of goes into realms of immortality, and it's past the boundaries of what humans should be able to control, and it goes against the natural timeline of life and what it even means to be human. If potentially we are able to print all of our own organs, when do we stop being a human and when do we start being just another genetically modified organism that is composed of all these bioengineered organs? It's kind of a difficult line. Additionally, it's playing God, and the rule of creation is that one cannot engineer itself. It must be engineered by something that is greater than itself. There's someone or something. This really has strong ties in the theistic view of humanity, and with a belief in God or even in some greater power, engineering itself takes the place of that higher power in a way that humans should not be able to do. Additionally, you have the question of who would get these organs. As you can imagine, they are very expensive and time-consuming to make, so you have the question of, is this rich people who have plenty of money and who have lived long lives? Are they going to be the ones who are benefiting from these technology, or is it the people who in reality could really benefit from it? Because how would they pay for it? In conclusion of my research, the invention of 3D bioprinted hearts in the near future would not be very surprising. However, there are still key aspects of the process that must be perfected. And the possible ethical ramifications of this, on the positive side, there are countless number of people who could be saved by this. and their quality of life could be increased. But at the same time, bioprinting organs is a dangerous slope, and not only must one be sure that the stem cells used are ethically procured, but you also need to look at how much authority man has over himself and how much he can engineer without really be playing God. So, as for just the reflection of myself looking back over my research and over my project and my internship, one of the difficulties that I really had was just understanding the research that I've been doing. A lot of the papers that I was reading were from people with their PhDs who are way more intelligent than I am and who have a much higher understanding of biology. So to read their studies and understand their experiments was quite a learning curve for me, and I really had to wrestle with that material and figure out how do I sift through all this information and all these big words. Additionally, I had a little bit of trouble with the ethics portion of my research just because I'm a person who very much likes black and white answers. And with ethics, obviously there are right and wrong answers, but there's also a large area of gray area in there too that has some good and some bad, and really I had to wrestle with a lot of those ideas, and that was difficult for me, and it caused me to grow a lot, but it was frustrating at times as well. And as far as growth too, I really feel like I learned how research is conducted. I didn't really have a good understanding of that before, but through this research paper and through the help of my advisors, I really learned how this is conducted, and I learned the process much better. And I kind of gained a confidence in myself too. I didn't really think starting out this project that I could research something like this and be able to understand it by the end of the process, but I really learned that through time and through research and through really reading a lot of information and sifting it all out, I can understand a lot more than I thought that I was able to. I also just gained an interest and a passion and continued my passions for a lot of areas. So a lot of the biomedical engineering side of things I really gained more of an interest for, as well as so things that apply to my project, as well as things that don't necessarily apply directly to my project, but I stumbled upon while I was doing research. I really have a strong interest in that now, as well as just gaining an interest for research in general. There are so many amazing things out there, and it's really just inspired me to continue on with research and be able to learn more and continue on learning more things. So yeah, thank you so much for listening.
Well done, Amanda. Excellent job. So we now move into the portion of your TGC project where we'll address some questions from the panelists. Panelists, any questions? Who would like to start? What are the panelists? I'll let the panelists go first. Questions?
Hi. So it seems like, as would be expected, there's a lot of barriers kind of coming up against printing a viable and transplantable organ as a whole. One of which you talked about is vascularization of the tissue and probably inducing angiogenesis as a whole. Do you know, or did you come across any research that attempts to kind of circumvent that barrier?
How so in printing?
The printing process. You said that they need to be vascularized in order to be printed. So is there anything out there that's kind of combating this issue that you know of?
At this time, they don't have very much technology for that. That's one of their greatest challenges right now, their greatest roadblocks that they have to overcome in order to print this. Right now, they're able to print artery or capillary, but how to program it to create more of itself is something that is much different than just printing the artery itself. So that's definitely a challenge that they have to overcome if they're going to create viable tissue.
Amanda, thank you. My question for you is specifically to your ethics section. So it seems like it's becoming an increasing conversation, this idea of like cyborg humanism, which is like how much technology can we graft into ourselves and still remain human. So I guess I'd like to hear just what are your reflections on that? Like sort of coming at this from an informed, recently experienced perspective, seeing what's we're rapidly becoming capable of. What do you think are the parameters of how much we should like sort of engraft technology into us, not just utilize it, but make it a sort of indistinguishable part of ourselves?
Yeah, I think going into this project, with bioprinting, it's not using a printer to create life per se, it's using cells that are already alive to create something different. So I think going into this project, I thought not quite as much about that this was, in a sense, creating life because the life was already there. You were just using it for a different cause. But I think the more as I studied it, the more I kind of became trapped in those ideas of, well, if we're engineering these cells to do certain things, are they even like the natural cell anymore? And I would say, no, they're not. At the beginning of my project, I would have said yes, but now I would say more no. And it is difficult to say how much we can do and how much we can't, and I think it really depends on what you think is the purpose of these treatments. If these treatments are to improve the quality of life of someone, or if it's to just make them live longer, or if it's just because we can. I think it really depends on what the reason for printing is.
Thank you.
Any questions from the audience? For Amanda.
You said something about parts are going to be printed in smaller scale.
Yeah.
Is there a discussion as to whether those parts are or would have to change?
Yeah, that is the goal. Kind of like I was talking about with the capillaries and the arteries, it's much different to print something that is in existence versus printing something that can further develop and create more of itself. But essentially that is the goal, that a heart will not have to be replaced over and over again, but it will actually be able to grow like a real heart. So a child who gets a transplant would only have to have one in their life, and they would be able to be grown with them. Anna?
Is it, I don't know if you came across this in your research, but is it more difficult to transplant a bioprinted heart versus just like a human heart?
In terms of surgeries kind of thing?
Yeah.
It's not more difficult. It's, if the heart is created correctly, it should have all the same properties of a real human heart, so it shouldn't be more difficult to implant a 3D printed heart versus a regular heart.
I'm curious if you had an opportunity to either in person or online talk to any of the experts who are doing this and dealing with it and grappling with the same questions or even the sort of biological challenges.
Yeah. I unfortunately did not have a chance to, in person interview them or really talk to these people who are at the tops of their field. I would have loved it, but people sadly are unavailable and busy doing research. But I really benefited from reading their direct research. It was definitely difficult at first just to understand what they were actually saying in their research, but from reading the research directly and understanding the experiment directly, it really helped me gain a better idea of what they were actually doing versus reading external sites.
Quick follow-up. Now, I'm curious, do they have like blogs, or not blogs, but do they have either blogs or like discussion rooms where experts will discuss things like this, like they do about in other fields, like car repair or technology or whatever?
I mean, to be honest, I'm not exactly sure the answer to that question. I'm sure that they do, and I know there are very many like medical conferences and bioengineering conferences where professionals who are all in this field will come together and discuss these ideas. But unfortunately, I don't think that I, as a student, have access to a lot of these areas because a lot of times the researchers won't publish their material until it is ready to be published. Sorry, that's all right. Thank you.
Did your internship help you at all in this project?
Thank you. Yeah, it did. My internship was in the laboratory at UCI Medical Center, and my internship wasn't working directly with this 3D bioprinted material, just because there are very few sites in the world that are doing this. But my internship really helped me understand better what goes on in a laboratory and helped me understand just the process of researching and the process of what was happening much better than if I had not have had it.
Well, can you guys join me in congratulating Anna? And becoming the first TGC Scholar.